tonight. She is somebody that is going to rock this world in a good way. So please help me welcome Lisa Duffy.
So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. It's definitely warms my heart to see so many of you here, and even a lot of people that I don't know. So I just want to preface this talk by saying basically I'm going to tell you my vocation story and how I've discerned God's will in my life. But I am by no means an expert in discernment or vocation. So I'm basically just sharing with you my story, and if it helps you or you can gain something from it, that's wonderful. So I decided to title this talk, Learning to Walk on Water. And that's because the passage in Matthew where Peter walks on water has been really instrumental in helping me discover my vocation and take a concrete step towards it. So before I start speaking to you, I'm going to read from it, just to remind us all what it says. So, then he made the disciples get into the boat and precede him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. After doing so, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When it was evening, he was there alone. Meanwhile, the boat, already a few miles offshore, was being tossed about by the waves, for the wind was against it. During the fourth watch of the night, he came toward them, walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified. "It is a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. At once Jesus spoke to them. "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter said to him in reply, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." Peter got out of the boat and began to walk on the water toward Jesus. But when he saw how strong the wind was, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him, and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" So the 2 points that I'd like to get across in my talk is the importance of trust and choice in discernment. So if we take a look at this scripture passage, the first thing, obviously, I think that you notice is the amount of trust it takes for Peter to even get out of the boat. And the fact that in order for him to remain walking on the water, he has to continue looking at Jesus and trusting that Jesus can make this happen, even though it's impossible. And the other thing is choice. If you notice, Jesus doesn't make Peter walk on the water. Peter actually asks. He says, "If it's you, call me out onto the water." He makes a choice. And then he also has to make the choice. You know, he could have easily been like, when Jesus says come, he could have said, actually, that might have been a bad idea. Because can you imagine this? He's on a boat in a storm with these waves rocking. And can you imagine stepping out of a boat into a stormy sea and walking towards someone? That takes a lot of trust. So sometimes, obviously, Peter gets some flack for not trusting, but it took a lot to get out of the boat, I think. So these are the 2 main points, trust and choice, that I want to get across to you. So I'm going to focus on those in my talk, but I'm going to start from the beginning. So my discernment story essentially starts about 7 years ago when I decided to go down to Mexico and teach English to an order of nuns and brothers. And I made this choice not because I was discerning the religious life or because I was particularly holy or even faithful. I actually had a pretty shallow faith, I would say. I'd grown up Catholic my whole life, gone to Catholic school, gone to Sunday Mass every week, prayed before meals, but I really didn't know Jesus. But I made this decision to go because I had a desire to travel, experience new cultures, and I really didn't want to go to college right away. So I found out about this order in Mexico and didn't really know much about it, but sounded great. They wanted us to come teach English, so me and my best friend went down. And in Hosea it says, I will allure her into the desert, and there I will speak to her heart. And that's another scripture passage that has always impacted me, because I particularly feel that in that instance, that's exactly what Jesus was doing. Because he took me to a remote hill, like an hour north of Acapulco, among the most unexpected people, in the most unexpected place, to a place where I was kind of stripped of every common American comfort. I was in a new country, new language, new culture. And it was there in that simplicity, where I wasn't being bombarded with all the noise that we get inundated with here, that Jesus spoke to my heart. And I was finally able to hear him, I think. So what really changed me down there was the witness of the sisters and the brothers that I was living with. I guess growing up, I never really realized that being a Christian means you're supposed to be different than other people. I just kind of saw that we all seemed to operate pretty much the same way. But when I saw these sisters and these brothers, the way that they loved each other and others, and the joy that they had, was palpable. And it was even hard to understand, because here you have these, they were all young, like 20-somethings, who are never going to get married, never going to have kids. They weren't particularly well educated, they're never going to have a career, they lived in absolute poverty, they had to beg for their food every week, yet they were happy. They were so happy, and their happiness was contagious, and it was real, and it was something that I knew that I wanted. And I came to discover that the reason for that was Jesus, because they had Jesus. And it was through living with them that my faith really began to grow. I began to pray, and really pray like I believed that there was someone listening to me. I started to go to daily mass with them. We would pray the rosary daily, which at first was really hard for me. Like, I remember the first time when they picked me up from the airport, and we're driving back to the convent, and they're like, let's pray the rosary. And I'm like, do we have to? Because I really want to look out the window right now. This is so cool. But that's what we did. And then every time we would get in the car, it was like, let's pray the rosary. I was like, okay. But eventually, I came to absolutely love the rosary. And I would pray it in my room by myself. They didn't have to make me anymore. And through all that, I was just growing in faith and growing in love. But yet, I still didn't necessarily discern a call to religious life. The sisters would even joke about it with me. They'd be like, you look so good in blue, because their habit was blue. And I'd be like, okay, that's not happening. But eventually, I really did. And I started first feeling this call and this desire when I was reading the Diary of St. Faustina. I don't know if any of you guys have read it, but it's basically revelations given to a Polish nun in the early 1900s about God's love and his mercy. And it was while reading this that I really just started to think, like, what if God is calling me to this life? And the question just repeated itself over and over, to the point where I really started to consider it, to the point where I was pretty positive that's what I was supposed to do. So it was like a drastic shift. But it wasn't something that I was excited about it in a sense, but I was also terrified of it, because I was 19 years old. I was like, what are my parents going to think? I guess I'm never going to college. Like, what about all the plans I had for my life? So I was just in this, turmoil of, what am I supposed to do? But I had come to the conclusion that if that's what Jesus wanted, then that's what I was going to do. So I decided that I would go talk to Father Pablo. Father Pablo was the founder of this order and a very holy man. And so I went to talk to him. I told him my dilemma. And basically, I decided if he said, yes, I think you should stay here and give it a try, I was going to do it. I was like, okay, I'm going to stay in Mexico the rest of my life. But I realize now that that was really the wrong way to go about discernment. Because basically, I wanted him to tell me. I didn't want to choose. I wanted to take the responsibility off my shoulders. And that's not how it works. You actually have to choose for yourself. But luckily, Father Pablo, as I said, was a very holy man, and he told me that I should go to college first. So that's what I did. I ended up coming out here to San Diego. I'm actually from the Midwest. and went to the University of San Diego. And when I came back from Mexico, I still had that in my mind, like, yeah, I'm just here for a time. I don't know if it's gonna be a year or two, but I'm gonna go back there and I'm gonna be a nun. And so I decided to major in Spanish and got a lot of things going. But college really tested me in a lot of ways that I wasn't expecting, because I came back basically from like a year-long retreat. And I came into this college atmosphere where not only was there like the expected college lifestyle going on, but I guess, I felt that there was a lot of hostility towards the faith, towards the church. And I went to a Catholic college. And it just really was like hitting like a brick wall. Like, it was just like every time I went to class, I felt like I had to like stand up and defend the faith in some way because they were saying something that wasn't true. And it really just began to wear on me and wear on me and wear on me to the point where like I was in like utter despair at one point my freshman year. I remember like I went to my resident minister crying and was just like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I must not be meant to live in the world. I think I need to go back to Mexico. And, she kind of let me do, she said, do what you gotta do. But I ended up staying, and it just continued to wear on me. But then my sophomore year, I decided I was gonna go do a come and see with this order in Mexico. And that is where, if you're discerning an order, you can tell them I'm thinking of joining you, and they bring you to what's called a come and see so that you can experience the life of that order. So I did that, and again, I went into it with this mentality of, Jesus, give me a sign. Like, if you want me to be here, like, just show me, make it great, and I'll stay. Like, I went my spring break, and I was like, I won't even go back for the rest of the semester. But again, this was the wrong mentality, because again, I wanted him to tell me. Like, I didn't want to choose it. I realize that now. But, so anyways, I didn't feel anything special. Actually, it was a really hard week. I struggled a lot, especially with being told what to do. And then again, I went to Father Paulo. I was like, Father Paulo, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I wanted him to tell me, like, I think you're supposed to be here. And again, I would have stayed. But he was like, I don't know either. I'm not God. So I ended up coming home. And at that point, I was like, I don't know what you want, Jesus. I just want a boyfriend. I'm not doing this anymore. So the rest of my college career was just really me being very lost and not knowing what I was supposed to do, and my prayer life suffered. I stopped praying as I had been, and my relationship with Jesus suffered. All that peace and that joy and that love that I had come to know in Mexico and after was gone. It was completely gone. I can't say that I was happy, and I knew that I was missing something that I had had before. But I didn't know what to do about it. So after I graduated, well, actually right before I graduated, I heard that there was an opening at the Goretti Group, and I'd been planning to go back to the Midwest and work in an organization in Chicago. But when I interviewed for the Goretti Group, I was really amazed. They asked me this question. They're like, how's your faith life? And at first I was like taken aback, like, whoa, come on, that's a little personal. But it made me realize that faith, or that prayer and that the sacraments were so central to this ministry. And that's what I want. I knew that's what I needed. I knew that it was because I wasn't praying anymore, that I didn't have a relationship with Jesus, and that my life was hard and I didn't have peace. So recognizing that, I decided, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. So I decided to take the job. And it's been a huge, huge blessing to me. Not only because of the centrality that prayer and the sacraments have for this ministry that kind of kept me accountable, but also just the great community that I got to know. Because when I was at college, I felt completely alone. I was looking for a community of passionate Catholics that I could pray the rosary with, and just didn't really find them. And that, I think, is central to following Jesus. You need community. You need to know that you're not alone. So not being alone has been great. And then also just learning about the teachings of the theology of the body and learning about what it means to be a woman, learning about purity of heart. Those things have all helped me better understand vocation, better understand what authentic love is, better understand that we're each called to make a gift of ourselves, no matter what vocation we're in, whether it's marriage, priesthood, religious life, consecrated singlehood. We're meant to live for others. So I was able to get back a good prayer life, reestablish a relationship with Jesus, and I was able to start discerning again, because that call had never gone away. Even when I was at my worst, I can remember, no, I'm not going to tell you. So this past July, I went to a program called Ecclesia, which is a formation program for young adults in North Dakota, and it's run by the Community of St. John. And it's a month long, and you take theology, philosophy classes, you pray with the monks every day, like the liturgy of the hours, and have a holy hour every day. Anyways, I did that because I wanted to take a step back from work and life and just focus all my attention on asking God, like, do you want me to do this? And if so, like, is it time for me to, like, take a concrete step forward? So that's what I did, and it was a month that was filled with confirmation and consolation. So the first day, there was a brand new priest there, and I don't know if you guys know, but the blessing of a brand new priest is like super strong. So they were having him bless everyone, and so I went and said, I asked basically for clarity in the discernment vocation. So he prayed over me for that and blessed me, and as I said, that's exactly what happened. So two of the main things that I came to realize about discernment and vocation had to do with trust and choice. So during one of our philosophy classes, Father Nathan talked about how in order to be more fully human, you have to make choices, because we were given free will, unlike any other creature. So when we make a choice, we become more fully alive, we become more fully human in what God called us to be. And Father Nathan talked about in particular, how a lot of times young Catholics, when trying to discern their vocation, don't want to make a choice. They're just like me, and they want the priest to tell them. And he knows this because he counsels people. And he was explaining how, the priest can't tell you, God might not give you a sign, but God uses our desires to point us in the right direction. So you have to ask yourself, what do you want? Do you want this? And that just like blew my mind. I definitely thought about that before, but for some reason when he said that, I was like, yeah, I've been spending all this time saying, God, what do you want? And not asking myself, what do I want? Because God doesn't want us to be slaves. And again, I was going into that mentality. If he tells me he wants it, I'll do it. He's God. But in reality, he doesn't want us to just be compelled to choose him. He wants us to choose him of our own free will. That's how we show him our love. So after Father Nathan talked about that, I remember I went to the chapel that night, and I just asked myself, do you want this? And I thought about everything that this life would entail, being with this order in Mexico, being a missionary. And I realized, yes, I do want it. I want it. I want even the good things, and I want the struggles and the sacrifices too. Because by this point, I knew what they were. Earlier, when I was 19, I really didn't understand. I really romanticized this life a lot, and was just like, how cool would that be to be in the middle of Mexico preaching to the poor, that's hardcore. But I didn't really, again, that wouldn't be making a total free choice, because I'd be choosing not the full picture. I'd be choosing the good things, but I wouldn't be choosing the struggles or the sacrifices, And we have to choose, Mount Tabor as well as Mount Calvary. And so I had learned kind of what this life would cost. The three vows that you take in religious life are chastity, poverty, and obedience. So I think the first one that really, I think most of us think about is chastity. That's tough. How do you do that? So that was kind of the first thing that I struggled with, was how could I possibly do that? And the second one was obedience. Like I mentioned, I realized that when I did the come and see, that's really tough to listen to have people tell you what to do. And I wasn't expecting that to be a problem for me. I thought that I would just be yeah, I'll do whatever, But when they were telling me, well, you got to go clean this floor, and you got to do that, I was don't really want to do that. But you have to, and that's part of it. And then poverty, the last time I was there a year ago for Father Pablo's funeral, and they had me staying where the sisters stay, and they stay on these really like thin mattresses, and their house is kind of open air, so that air can get through and keep it cool. But that also means it's open to like scorpions and tarantulas and stuff. And so I was just sleeping there the first night, like, Jesus, please help me, I don't want to wake up with a tarantula. And it really made me realize, like, this is a life of intense poverty. Like, this is real, this is the real deal. And when I left, I wasn't like, didn't know what I was going to do about it. Like, I hadn't made a decision. I was just like, but I don't know if I can do that, you know? And then also just the reality of the ordinariness of it hit me this last time when I visited them in their Minnesota convent. I just went for a weekend, and again, I was like waiting for this aha moment or like this great feeling of this is where I'm supposed to be. But it was a very ordinary weekend, you know. We went grocery shopping, went to mass, the choir was kind of bad, you know. And so it was just the realization that it's not going to feel like as romantic as I make it most of the time. So after I made that visit in Minnesota, actually, I had a 7-hour drive back to where I was, and I had to think about it, like, what does that mean? Like, I thought, Jesus, you're going to tell me that this is what I'm supposed to do. And I listened to this CD called Trusting in the Lord, and the priest on it is a Lighthouse Media CD, and the priest on it was talking about this passage from Matthew, about Peter walking on the water. And he talked about how when Peter's on the water, he's fine when he's looking at Jesus, but it's when he looks at the waves and the wind and the storm around him that he starts to sink. And he made an analogy between what Peter's doing and what we often do when we just can't stop thinking, when we want to think about every possible outcome, every way it could go wrong or right, and trying to make it make sense. And that really hit home to me, because I realized that up to that point, I'd been trying to think about everything that this life entailed, and think about, could I really do that? Is that really possible? Could this really happen? Would Jesus really sustain me? And because I was always thinking about that, I couldn't make a choice. Because in reality, what I've realized is that the religious life is similar to walking on water, because just like walking on water is unnatural, it's not something that you can do without the grace of God. I think similarly the religious life is. It's not natural. You wouldn't normally choose it, but it's something that's only possible with Jesus' grace. So I was trying to make sense of it for so long, but in reality you can't really make sense of it. All you can do is trust that Jesus is in front of you and he's calling you, and he loves you, and he's going to keep you on the water. So it was in realizing this that I finally started to trust and realized that that's all I had to do. I didn't have to explain everything. I just had to trust him. So after making the choice, which I did in July, I spoke to a priest, and I kind of asked him, like, when I go back, like, I know that this high that I'm on is gonna go down, because that's how it had been my whole discernment period. Is like, sometimes it felt, I was like, yeah, I can't wait, I want to be a sister, and then other times I was like, that's crazy, I can't do that. And I knew that was going to happen again. I was like, how do I handle that? And he explained to me that those are emotions and those are feelings, and that's what they do. They go up and down, they change. But God wants to put his grace in our will more than he does in our emotions. Because it's easy for us to choose him if he's making us feel good all the time, if he's giving us consolation all the time. But it's a true act of faith and a true act of love when we choose him just because we love him. Not because it feels good, but because we've chosen it. So that's kind of where I'm at today. I just need to choose to trust him every day. And when I go to the convent, you know, I don't know that this is my vocation for sure. God may show me that it's not. But it's in choosing to trust him that I'll discover that. And so I finally gotten to the point where I've gotten out of the boat. Now I just need to keep walking towards him. And I know that there are going to be times where I sink. But just like Peter, we have to be willing to say, Jesus, save me. because Jesus will be right there to pull us up again. So I'm just going to end on that note. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Standing ovation.
Do you guys have questions? You want to answer questions? Oh, she said yes. So if you guys have any questions, anyone?
What's the name of your community?
The community is called the Consecrates of the Most Holy Savior.
Anyone else?
What is their charism?
Their charism is to preach the gospel to the poorest of the poor. So they do missions, and they go to remote. They go to remote towns in Mexico and Central America, and they'll be there for a week or two. And they basically just revive the faith life of the community. They catechize the people, they do rosary processions, they offer the sacraments, because a lot of times these places are so remote that a priest comes maybe once a year or something. So.
I guess we talk about trust. My question is, how did you fortify that trust? Or basically, it's not an emotion, right? It's not a feeling, but it's a decision. How did you fortify that or grow in that trust?
Well, I was thinking about this today when we listened to the gospel, how Jesus oftentimes can't perform miracles until that faith is there. So I think it was once I finally trusted him to the point where I took, like I said, got out of the boat, like told people this is what I'm doing, quit my job, like took a step forward, that he's been able to just pour his grace on me, because I'm at complete peace. And before I went to Ecclesia, I was not at peace at all. So I really just think it was in making that act of faith that he's like rewarded me with his grace and helped me to continue to trust. Yes, ma'am?
What do you like best about Mexico?
I like the people. I really love the people. They're just so friendly and hospitable and loving. And they seem to be... Yeah, I also love riding the back of the pickup. Did someone have a question back there? Yeah.
I had a question. Are you, where again in Mexico are you going to be?
It's in Acapulco.
Oh.
That's their mother house. They have a house in Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Mexico City, and Minnesota.
How big is this community?
There's about 60 sisters and probably 20-25 brothers and 2 priests.
What would like your first few months look like?
My first few months are going to be in Minnesota, so...
Really?
Tell me, what are they going to be like?
What month are you going?
March.
It'll be cold. There'll be snow, slushy. Yeah.
Well, it might get above 20 degrees by then.
Yeah, it's actually not a bad time to go.
It'll be 30s.
It'll be warm enough. But basically, I think I'll be an aspirant, so I'll just be, I don't know.
Going grocery shopping.
I don't know, praying.
It's a bad place.
I really don't know. Any other questions?
Do you wear a habit?
Yeah, we wear a habit. It's beautiful. It's baby blue with a white veil.
Wow.
Trinitarian.
Yeah.
Is that like for the aspirin? Like, is it for the...
No, the aspirants wear a jumper.
Okay.
Oh, a baby blue jumper.
So after aspirancy, then what?
Postulancy.
Constancy. And then what?
And then novitiate.
And then what?
And then temporary vows.
And then
And
what?
then you renew, and then you renew your temporary vows every year for 3 years minimum before you can take perpetual vows. So again, that shows like the wisdom of the church, that they want you to be able to make a totally free decision. So, Andrea.
How do you keep in touch with your family while you are in Mexico?
I think through letters, and I think I might have an email, but I'm not positive about that. Yeah. Any other questions?
How does your family feel about it?
Oh, that's a good question. They're struggling with it, actually, my parents especially. So, I mean, I didn't really tell them about it ever until like I decided, so it's very new for them. And so all the things that I had to process through, they're processing through. So they just keep coming at me with all these things, like, have you thought about this, what about this? And I'm just trying to help them through that process and make sure that they know that it doesn't have anything to do with them. Actually, it actually has a lot to do with them. Like, in many ways, I see this is an opportunity to sacrifice for them and to love them in a deeper way. So I'm just trying to help them through this. Yes.
Have you seen this show on Lifetime about called The Sisterhood? It's a reality show about young women going to a convent.
No?
Yeah.
I haven't.
You're being serious?
It's really, yeah. I watched it.
Should I be on?
Well, it's already
Right after mass, right?
No, it is. Type in The Sisterhood, hashtag. They're like five women in their mid-20s, are going through, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 different convents and traveling to each of them, maybe spending maybe 4 or 5 days at each, and they do the routine, and like it's just been like 2 episodes and they've all had meltdowns. And that's supposed to happen. You're supposed to, that's like part of like the Paschal mystery. You're supposed to like die to yourself. So it's kind of more normal than like anybody realizes.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you all so much.
Thank you all so much, and we're going to have Tara, if you could please stand up so everyone knows who you're at. She's going to guide the whole group over to Felipe's Pizza Grotto so that we can say goodbye to Lisa, take some pictures, and we can continue asking questions and just hang out. So if you guys just want to go ahead and go down there, and the Grady group is going to hang back and clean up here. Okay, thank you. Yeah, sure, if you guys want to help with the chairs, but not everybody, we just need them. Oh, just the men. Actually, like, that's a really good idea. The men can stay behind and help with the chairs. That'd be great.
But we walk the ladies to the restaurant and protect them. Yeah, we need to protect them from
I knew way better than that. So why? You just don't realize. Left, right?
It's okay. It's all right. We have an edit button. We have an edit button. Oh, okay.
Do I have to like talk to the rest?
7.
Just so that we have a direct table for direction, we're going to say how many people are. So try to get ready to go. Going up right now.